Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Jesters Hideout. It's been a while, hasn't it? This is
Sure has
Akira,
been.
and today I
And
have
this
with
is
me,
Vault.
yeah,
Yep.
Volt as usual. Whew, with such a long hiatus, I actually wasn't entirely sure what we would want to talk about today, but we're going to go with two topics instead of three, because I think we're going to have quite a bit of time with these. Let's get the music rolling. So, I'm actually thinking we start with Code Geass, and then we talk about Devil May Cry. So, as usual, spoiler warning, because we're definitely going to be talking about spoilers, won't we?
Of course.
Okay, to our viewers who may not know what Code Geass is, man, what is the simplest way to explain Code Geass? Imagine Britain, which is still called Britannia, has invented a new kind of weapon. They're basically like the equivalent of mobile suits. They're like really powerful, I guess they're kind of like walking tanks, except with a lot more maneuverability and control. And because of this weapon they've created, they've managed to take over most of the world. And there's only like a few other conglomerates of nations that are not under their rule. And in this process, Japan has actually become a colony of Britannia. And so the story of Code Geass starts off with a guy. Okay, so this is definitely going into spoilers territory, because I'm not sure if this was explicitly mentioned in the first episode. The main character of Code Geass is Lelouch, and he is actually a prince from the Kingdom of Britannia, but he's living in Japan in exile. Is that more or less correct?
That was the very first thing you see in the first episode.
The thing I don't like, I know that the first episode introduced a lot of like the world building, but I don't remember if it explicitly said that Lelouch was actually a prince. Because a lot of things happen in the first episode. Like it starts off, because I know it definitely goes over his childhood, but I wasn't sure if that was like if that was more fleshed out in the second episode or if that was part of the first episode, because it shows his childhood where his mother was killed and his father basically just didn't care, and his father is the king of Britannia, or the emperor, I guess.
I don't remember, but
something along those lines.
You do eventually see that in like the first 4 episodes, I believe.
Yeah, like definitely within like the first few episodes, you see all that happen. And then this whole story of Code Geass is basically Lelouch trying to acquire power such that he can overthrow Britannia and bring the world to a more peaceful state where his little sister can live in peace. It's more or less the premise, right? Now, I do remember that Code Geass was a show that you were trying to get me to watch for a very long time, just like Steins Gate. And you weren't the first one to try either.
How come it took you so long to finally watch this greatness of an anime?
Okay, well, the thing is that I'm very resistant to most recommendations from everyone. Like,
And what is that?
I don't know. For some reason, whenever someone introduces things to me, I just don't want to watch them, and then I just end up watching them on my own later on. Or like, in your case, I think you're the only person who's been extra pushy on me, which is why I actually watch the stuff you recommend me, which has been good.
But of course, it is a one of a kind that needs to be watched.
Yeah, and actually, I do remember that in terms of themes and social commentary, it was definitely one of the most unique shows I've ever seen. Like, it talks a lot about the nature of people, about ideology and things that aren't usually actually mentioned in anime, right? Because I think in the modern day, most entertainment is trying to move away from having any sort of like internal message, right? Just more from entertainment.
Yeah, I don't know. In my personal opinion, I feel like Code Geass is probably like one of the best war animes to watch. That's very entertaining. Because I don't know, like when I watched Gundam or when I watched Tanya, right?
Okay, yeah.
They focus more on the war aspect and less so on the character aspect. And what is it like? When it comes to Code Geass, they focused on both of them and they meshed it very well. So when they combine like those two concepts together, and not only that, but like the anime is also very
I roughly get what you're talking about though, because things like Gundam and Yojo Senki is like you focus more on the tactics and less on the big picture, right? But Code Geass is also a lot about the big picture, about the end game, where the war, like the end of the war, is supposed to lead to, right? So like,
not only that, but like you're more so connected to the characters as well. Like you actually know how they feel, know what they're going through. You feel more connected, right?
You also see like the two-faced nature of some of them, like especially Lelouch, because on one hand he has to be like the leader of what is more or less like a, well, you can either call them a terrorist organization or like a group of vigilantes, but either way, like when he's acting as the leader, he's like a completely different person from how he is in private. Right, like he's very human in private, but as a leader, he's like completely like ruthless and charismatic.
Yeah, and I believe that there isn't that many anime out there that has that sort of character, you know, where characters like Lelouch or Kira from Death Note, right? Like those characters are one of a kind in my opinion. Like you don't see them very much or very often.
I don't. The thing with Lelouch is that he's so unique that I don't know if it's even possible to recreate. He's actually like, because he's not a good person, so to speak, right? He's a lot more deep than many of the characters we see nowadays. Like a lot of the characters are just motivated by something simple, like, you know, justice, do the right thing, and like, yeah, honor, right? Like, but Lelouch has none of that. He will use any method at his disposal, even if it means killing innocent people to accomplish the goals he wants, right? And you see that with all the tactics and plans he creates. Is like casualties are nothing to him. He just wants to win, right? But at the same time,
but what if one of his friends were to die?
That's the one thing. Like he cares a lot about certain people, right? Like his little sister, like one of the girls that was working with him, Kalin. Like those are the people that he would not allow to die, no matter what, even if it meant making like a tactical or strategic blunder. Because I remember during the first season, where like during the final battle at Tokyo, where they like basically by that point, Lelouch's army had actually pushed Britannia to the point of defeat, right? But then Lelouch completely breaks off from the rest of his army, which leaves the chain of command in disarray. Because usually, his organization, Lelouch as Zero, is the one who's giving all the orders, right? But because he left the battlefield to go find his sister after she'd been kidnapped, like everything just fell apart, right?
Yeah.
And it goes to show you that like he might be a brilliant leader, but like he's still very selfish, and his personal goals matter to him more than, you know, the lives of other people sometimes.
He is a very logical but also very an emotional character.
Yeah. And I would say that you know, it helps that he's gifted with a lot of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, insight and genius.
You know, like characters like him you don't see very often. Like not only does he have a lot of emotion and he's very smart, but like when you compare like to other characters, some characters are usually either, you know, too smart, too logical for their own kind and have no emotions, like Goblin Slayer, right? Or like Akira from Death Note, or they become, or you have characters that are too emotional and has like no brain cells, you know what I mean?
Kazuya.
But Lelouch is basically both of these. He's very emotional, but he's also very logical, very smart. So, like, it's just
it's different, yeah.
Unique. Yeah.
I was
like, can you think of any characters that is like him?
Off the top of my head, I really don't have anyone that I could peg to be on the same level as Lelouch in terms of complexity and depth.
Yeah.
The dude's got like, I think the only person I can think of is a character called Akane Sumori. I think that's how you pronounce her name, from Psycho Pass. But
I didn't watch Psycho Pass.
Okay, this is from the very first season of Psycho Pass. So, like, she starts out as like this new recruit into like the police agency. Like, she's completely green, doesn't know how to deal with, you know, like criminal situations,
really
violent criminals. Not at first. That's the thing. Not at first. She was very like.
Because I remember the main focus, like the main character in that show was the guy with the short black hair.
Oh yeah, Kogami, I think. Yeah. The thing is that like over time though, as she dealt with more cases, she became like less controlled by her emotions and a lot more like she's able to like perceive nuances in situations, do like detective work really well. Like it was a change, right? Like, but like I said, that's still not the same as Lelouch, who had all of that to begin with as a character. Which I mean, even
Kira from Death Note was also kind of in a similar situation as that Psycho Pass character too.
Right. Which, I mean, it just goes to show that they're all unique characters, and, you know, none of them can quite be matched to the other, just that it's a unique experience to go through, right?
Yeah.
And another thing I did like about Code Geass, though, was that Lelouch was not the only focus. There was always that duality of him and the other character, his best friend, Suzaku.
Yeah.
Like, how they both wanted the same thing, but did things completely differently from one another, so they always butted heads.
Yeah, that's a very interesting, like, concept of the anime. And, like, yeah, like, the anime is unique because they focus on many things, not just like one specific character.
And I did like the fact that it did portray Suzaku's path as like a viable alternative to Lelouch's, because Lelouch was going to just destroy Britannia as a whole, but Suzaku's like, well, what if we just lived in peace with them, became one of them? Like, that would be fine too, right? And
it would be fine, but that's idealistic.
It is. And that's like, and you know that Suzaku's being idealistic when you look at, I think one of the opening shots of one of the episodes was in Japan, how like the Britannian students were just going about their daily commute like on the train, and like, on like the Britannia side, like everything's like beautiful, well built, like there's big buildings everywhere, but like you look slightly to the left and you just see like the slums of Japan, and like everything is in horrid disarray. It's like it's poverty stricken. Yeah. Like, it is idealistic, but I think it did a really good job of showing that like it wasn't right or wrong to hold one belief over another, just that, you know, there were two different sets of beliefs and both the characters were acting upon them. Something that I'm actually not used to. And another thing was that it spent a lot of time focusing on Suzaku and his love interest, right? Where like normally you reserve that kind of thing for the main character, which Suzaku was not. He definitely wasn't, but...
Well, the reason why they were doing that is because they want to like make us, the audience, to actually care about the character. So then once he actually dies, then that's when you like know that stuff is about to go down.
Oh yeah, actually, that was the one episode of Code Geass that I refused to watch. I remember. It was that time where like Suzaku and Yuffie they'd finally come up with a plan to basically like restore peace to Japan, more or less. And then Lelouch messed it all up by accidentally activating his Geass. And the moment I saw that, I stopped the episode. I'm like, I can't see this.
You turn your eyes away from the truth.
I knew what was gonna happen, man. Like when that Geass went off, and like the order was like to kill the Japanese, right? Like I knew exactly what was gonna happen. It's like, oh, I don't need to see this. Like this is gonna be horrible.
And you said that was a plot convenience, or like...
It was a plot convenience, because I remember talking to you at that time. I was like, you know what? I really wish that Lelouch had made the conscious decision to force her to do that, rather than like him doing it by accident. I wanted him to like intentionally do it, just to show...
So would that really be in his character, to kill someone that he likes? Or, you know, force somebody that he likes to do...
In that particular situation, okay, like, it would be against his character, sure. But I wouldn't say it's something that he completely would not be able to do, because at that time his organization had only two choices: either they go against the will of the Japanese people, which they couldn't do, or they find another way, like they force the war to continue in a different way, right? And then in Lelouch's character, because his end goal is still to destroy Britannia, not just to free Japan, but like free the whole world, then he would have to make that sacrifice, and he would not want to do so, but he would do so. That's how I felt like it should have been.
So in a what if scenario, if for some reason his Geass didn't go out of control during that moment, do you think the anime could have diverged to a different route?
No, because in any route where Lelouch like surrenders, basically, he then just loses because Charles would have activated the World of Sea, right?
So would you say it's a good thing that he killed Yuffie?
Okay, well, first of all, the one issue I take with Code Geass is the introduction of the World of Sea concept, because I don't think it's very well fleshed out. You know what I mean? Yeah,
because like all of season 1 and half of season 2 focused more so on the world's war.
Yeah.
Between like the Black Knights versus Britannia. Then all of a sudden, like the other half of season 2 now is like they introduce the Sea World. It's like
yeah,
where did that come from, right?
Right, like in the context of what would happen in the story, if the Black Knights had surrendered, I think that would have resulted in a different timeline. But the question then being is that like it would depend on how that is developed, right? Because with Yuffie in charge of Japan, Japan would probably never see another rebellion again, right? Because she would have governed people fairly and peacefully. But the thing is then, like, how long before that status quo changes, right? Because if I'm to break off and talk about how things change, like, you remember how in Gears of War 5, sorry, like, you know how First Minister Jin is, like, basically a dictator, right?
Yeah.
But her predecessor was, like, the wife of the main character, Marcus, who was a very kind and compassionate person, and not, like, she was more focused on civic projects than, you know, being a totalitarian dictatorship. But her successor, who still wanted the same thing as her predecessor, did so by switching her focus to being like a totalitarian dictatorship. So, like, it's hard to say that if Lelouch had surrendered to Yuffie, if that would have changed. You know?
Well, if he had surrendered, then he'll be no different from Suzaku then, right?
And the thing is that I get it. Like, it was a good offer, though. Like, Yuffie gave him an out because he didn't want to cause unnecessary bloodshed between him and his, like, blood relatives either, right? So...
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, I still stand by, if Lelouch had consciously made the decision to force her to kill the Japanese, I think, like I would have appreciated his character a lot more. Like, if it was deliberate, like, oh man, like, this is how far he's willing to go, right?
Except he would never do, like, any harm to the characters that he likes.
Yeah.
To his friends, right?
Yeah, not to his friends, not to his family that he actually cares about. I don't think he would ever be willing to do that. Like, that's why, like, Yuffie was, like, the ultimate test for him. Right.
Yeah, like, if we switch Yuffie with Schneider, the guy with the blonde hair, right?
Oh, Schnitzel. Was it Snizel? I forget.
Yeah, Schneizel, Schneider, whatever.
I forget how to pronounce his name. Schneizel, I think.
Him, I will have no doubt he'll probably actually intentionally use his Geass towards him.
Well, he did. Like, and we saw that, right? Like, he not only killed, what's his brother in like the first episode?
I don't remember.
Oh my god. Man, like, the names elude me now. Like, the brother that he killed in the first or second episode. Like, that wasn't an easy thing for him to do, right? Like, he had like I'm not sure if it was guilt or if he was just sickened by the act, but he killed his brother, right? And then, like, at the moment he was done that, though, he kept going on with it, though. I don't think he killed anyone else, though. Like, it was just that first guy. Everyone else he either put under a Geass or, like, otherwise let go. Like, Cornelia, he injured her, but he didn't kill her. And yeah, so Yuffie and that brother were the only ones he killed. Why can I not remember his name?
Well, I think it's probably because you only seen him once, and they only introduced him in like 1 and 2 episodes. So because of how like little of a showtime he had, that's probably why you don't remember his name.
I had to rack my brains real hard for that. Clovis. There we go.
Clovis? Oh yes.
Had to rack my brain so hard for that. I had to remember Charles's speech. I had to go by word until he says the name. I'm like, oh, that's the name.
Yeah, actually, I had to think back about his speech.
His speech is one of my favorite speeches, actually. Like, that's when I started really liking Code Geass, when Charles gave his speech about inequality. Because, like, that's one of the things that I appreciated, that, you know, Lelouch saw that the world was unfair, while Suzaku tried to be idealistic about the world the whole time. And then, like, you know, you had Charles reminding people that, you know, inequality is just a part of nature, and that, you know, we should, like, because we, Britannia, are the strongest, we have the right to rule the world.
So basically, what is it, like, natural selection, pretty much.
Yeah, basically. Like, when you think about nature, like, the only reason why humans are allowed to live, like, no matter how we are, like, we could be weak and talentless and completely, like, useless, right? But we'd still be allowed to live. That's because of the way human has built the civilizations, right? But in nature, if you're too weak, like, if you're, like, a newborn, like, deer or something like that, and, like, you have, like, a crippled leg, like, when the wolves come, like, you're done for. No one's there to save you, kind of thing, right? So, like, that's the kind of logic that Charles was invoking, basically. And, like, if you're not strong enough to oppose Britannia, then you should just die, kind of thing, right?
We humans have the privilege where if we're injured, we could just call for help, or call 911, get to a hospital, right? Or get some sort of treatment, get medication. Like, we have a lot of privilege, comparing us to, like, the animals out there.
Yeah.
Where like dogs, cats, deers, lions, right? Like, if they were to fend off for themselves, like, it's fight or flight. Like, That's
Yeah.
your only two options. You don't have anything else. Well, as us, like we have a lot, unless you're in a very extreme situation. But
Yeah, like basically barring being in like a poverty-stricken or like war zone country, like humans live decently well, all things considered. Like it's like a bit too well in certain places as well, right? So at the end of the day, like when you look at it through that lens, like Charles had a point, right? But at the same time, when you consider the way that they were just basically subjugating the rest of the world to their liking, it's obvious to see why Lelouch couldn't accept that.
oh yeah,
Not to mention,
because like he loves because he loves his sister very much, right? And the fact that she can't walk and she's blind, like
because of of the king's actions, basically.
yep.
Yeah, like
because of everything that happened to her, like he will not accept that reality.
Yeah, he wanted a world where anyone could live in peace, right? And like that's really hard to achieve. And he had a personal grudge against the Emperor of Britannia for that reason too. So, and then the thing is that like once he actually got his power, I think that's the best part about Code Geass is that his power was really strong. Like it was like a main character kind of power, right? But it wasn't on like Tatsuya Shiba levels of like overpoweredness.
Well, what do you think about Rolo's power then? Is that overpowered too?
No, because he pays a price for it, right? And also, like, it's not true time stopping. Like he's warping people's perception of time, so it's not the same thing as a true time stop.
But
and also, he pays a huge price for it because he will die the more he uses it, right?
Yeah, but Lelouch's power can only be used once against the same person.
Yeah, but like if he does not need that person alive, he can just do his what's the phrase? Lelouch v Britannia, Mejuru. Shine. And then, like, he just wins. Like, and there's no way to stop that. Right?
I guess.
Like, Lelouch's power is ridiculous in the fact that he's absolute freedom over what command he gives to someone. And, like, basically the only way he could mess it up is if he wastes it. Like, if he uses it without planning. Right?
But it's also weak at the same time because throughout all of Code Geass, they use the mobile suit.
The nightmares, I think they were called?
War. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they need to have eye-to-eye contact in order for the power to work.
I like that, though.
You don't need to have that, right? Like,
true.
He could just use that power while still inside his nightmare.
True.
And it will still affect other people.
I guess 1v1, Rolo wouldn't lose to anyone because of his ability to mess with people's time perception.
Yeah.
But just in terms of like how deadly Lelouch's Geass can be, like especially if you're being controlled against your will, like, and the thing that we proved was that Lelouch's Geass works on people indefinitely. Like there's absolutely no limit on how long it can affect you for. So, oh yeah. Speaking of which, did I ever tell you about what happened to that girl that he used his Geass on to test out how long his Geass was effective for?
Was she still like writing the days?
Well, she couldn't, right? Because the school got destroyed, right? So she couldn't. So then, like, but she was still under the orders of the Geass too. And then supposedly, I'm not sure like who found the source material for this. Supposedly, they had to lock her in an insane asylum because she just would not stop compulsively trying to go to the school to write those carvings.
Oh no!
Again, this is what I mean when I say like Lelouch just doesn't care. Like he has no problem making other people suffer just to test out his own powers, right?
I never knew that. Where'd you find that reason?
I was reading it on a comment section of a video. And they said, like, they're having a discussion about Lelouch and his ethics, and, like, yeah, one person just pointed out, like, the girl that he used his Geass on to test out its duration just ended up being, like, confined to a psych ward because he never removed the Geass on her.
Well, there's no way he could, right? Unless you have Orange's
oh, yeah.
health.
Jeremiah's the only one who could remove it. So, I don't know, maybe by the time that he showed up in the city, he eventually, like went around and started canceling Geasses, or, like, maybe he never did. But, like, he completely...
Maybe he never, like... Or maybe he like never interacted with her.
Well, right, yeah, like he completely forgets this girl even exists. Like he does not remove his Geass from her. And another thing is that, like all the people he forced to like collapse parts of Tokyo, I think. Like and he made them all kill themselves after their tasks were complete. Like Lelouch clearly does not care about the lives of other people. At least not when they're not important to him, right?
Yeah.
So like it's
so will that make him a heartless character?
He's not heartless, but like I liken him to someone like Stalin. You know, like you care about the people you care about, but you don't care about anyone else but them. right? Like, for the sake of your goal, you step over all the bodies that you create, kind of thing. Kind of like Kiritsugu, actually.
Except Kiritsugu actually loves humans, right? Which is why he has the blank eyes, because he wants to save as many as possible, but he has to kill in order to save.
That's true. Like, in that sense, it's different. Right? Yeah, in like Lelouch's case, he just straight up doesn't care. In Kiritsugu's case, he's like, I have to do this, even though I don't want to.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You see how all the lights in his eyes fade away. Kiritsugu doesn't like to do this anymore, but he has to.
It was the only path available to him. Although I guess in Lelouch's case, Lelouch always had the option to like just surrender, but he just never did. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember that one time that he went through like major depression though, because I forget what was the cause of that. Was that because Nunnally was gone, or was it because
Yeah, well, because Nunnally, assumingly dead from the nuke.
He was about to like take drugs and everything, like Lelouch was. I remember, and like
and
Callan had to stop him.
In.
Good times. And that's another thing is like I'd never seen Lelouch so defeated before, because he's usually so like arrogant and triumphant. But then you see him like his hair's down, like his eyes have no life, and he's about to inject himself with a syringe. Like, yo, they massacred my boy.
Yeah, this pretty feels bad. I mean, like, what? Not only is his only driving force for anything.
Yeah.
Like, throughout the series, it was because of her is why he hated Britannia and his dad.
Yeah, that is true. I can't deny that.
So, in all actuality, if she never existed, or if she died early, then Lelouch would have been broken, like, long time ago. Or, you know, like, he will have no motivation to actually take down Britannia at all.
Right, and I remember talking about like strategic blunders. Like he was willing to commit so many strategic blunders because of Nunnally's sake, right? So it just goes to show how important she was to him.
It makes you wonder then, like, if Nunnally never existed or were never born, would he have became like the same as his brothers?
Well, I mean, on the assumption his mother was still killed, I would assume that he would have held some resentment, if I had to guess. But I think like having his little sister being crippled like made things much worse in terms of his emotional state, if I had to guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, he was born a prince, so.
Yeah, like if for some reason his mom wasn't assassinated, I have a feeling Lelouch would have became the same as Clovis and Schneider.
Well, that's the thing. Like Schneisel and Clovis were like they were like what, like really high strung, I want to say. I mean,
so Lelouch, right?
Yeah, and like I think that has to do with the way they were brought up. Like they were brought up knowing that they're superior to others as well. So.
But so does Lelouch. Like he knows he's superior than most.
That's the thing. Yeah, he still shows that even when he's just a school kid, right? Like he knows he's better than others, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that like the place in which you grow up and the people around you plays a large influence on that. Or like in Suzaku's case, like I don't know Suzaku's backstory very well, aside from the fact that he killed his father, who was the prime minister of Japan at the time.
Yeah.
So like I don't know what Suzaku's case was. It's just that he always felt like really humbled, and like he always felt like the underdog trying to rise up to make change from the inside, right? But at the same time, it was kind of misguided.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about Suzaku's case. Like, he just has this very strong sense of responsibility or justice, and he just wants to like be rewarded from it by working extremely hard.
That's the problem though, because working extremely hard doesn't always work out, you know. Like if you're putting in the right effort to the wrong cause though, like that's exactly what Suzaku was doing the whole time, putting in the right effort to the wrong cause.
He was too idealistic. He doesn't want to see the reality of things, which is why he's always like aiming or like helping the wrong team, I guess.
I mean, ironically enough, when he and Lelouch actually team up, they're like pretty much unstoppable, as we expect. But like they spent so much time butting heads instead of helping each other out that like I'm pretty sure if they had just teamed up from the very beginning, the story would have been over very quickly.
Only 12 episodes.
Well, that's no fun. Right? Well, I mean, I say no fun, but the thing is like it bothered me that they went to episode 12 and then they just ended the season with a cliffhanger, and then what? I'm in the middle of something. Sorry about that. Just an interruption. So, they went to set this first season, ended it. They like say soft reset everything, where like he's still back in school, like his organization's gone, he has to rebuild from the start. Like, come on, like that could have been completely avoided, I feel, from like a story perspective. But I don't know. I'm not a good story writer myself, so maybe it's wrong for me to critique it like that.
Well, the only reason why they managed to team up was because Lelouch has no other choice but to like join the Britannia side and did what Suzaku wanted to do all along, right? Except Lelouch actually has the bloodline and the power to take over as king.
Well, it was
Suzaku, he can only be a soldier.
It was a tactical necessity though, because when he was betrayed by his own organization, there were only two people who were still loyal to him. That was Callan and Rollo, right?
Yeah.
So like he was completely screwed over, and the only thing he could do was to team up with Suzaku and try to take over Britannia. But
then does that mean that at the end of the day, Suzaku was right? His method actually works.
It's not that Suzaku.
If Lelouch like joins Britannia's side and assassinates his dad early.
Okay, on the assumption that Lelouch could become Emperor of Britannia, I'm pretty sure it would have worked. Because if he became Emperor of Britannia, he's all powerful, right? He has complete control. And like if he eliminated all of his other political rivals, like he got rid of Clovis and he got rid of Schneisel, like he has absolute power of Britannia, and he can just do whatever he wants with that. He can like free the colonies, he can establish new policies, everything, right? So in a way, Suzaku was right, but that was the hardest way to do things, I feel. Because remember, the one thing about Suzaku is that he was mistreated even when he was an esteemed soldier within the ranks of the Britannian army, right? Because he was Japanese by birth. So he was an honorary Britannian, but he was treated differently because he was of Japanese origin. And like you could see that, like, it's kind of like the old school like American story where, like, you know, rich people like don't associate with poor people, or like rich people don't associate with rich people who used to be poor, kind of thing. It's like, yeah, like I feel like in Lelouch's case it would have been really tough because Suzaku played by Britannia's rules the whole time, right? But everything about Lelouch was he was never going to play by the rules, right? He did everything outside of the rules because that made him more powerful. But if he tried to become emperor, that would mean that he has to scheme from within the empire, like play by like, you know, kind of like the Game of Thrones kind of rules where you have to assassinate all your siblings and all that stuff, right? Which in itself would have been its own conundrum. Not to mention he was already exiled, so it was hard for him to take the throne by force. Also, the logic in which he became emperor made no sense. He's like,
why?
He's like, oh, the emperor of Britannia is dead by my hand, so that makes me the next emperor of Britannia.
Well, I think he can like make it happen only because he had the Geass, right?
He had the Geass and he had Suzaku. That was the only reason why that particular attempt succeeded, I feel. So, like I said, becoming emperor would have been like a really, like, it would have worked, but it would have been like the tough way to go about things. Like, not that what he was doing, like making the Black Knights and whatnot, like trying to build like that public image of like heroes of justice, like that was pretty tough in of itself. Right? Like, getting all the supporters and stuff. Like, the worst part being is that he had to gather all of his supporters without using his Geass on his own followers, because I forget if that was a rule he had for himself, or if that was just something that he just chose to not do. Do you remember?
He chose not to do it because I think, like, just in case if he wants to use his Geass on them, right, for something else, which is why he like built their trust like from start.
Yeah, I mean, at any point in time, he could have just forcefully used the Geass on them and like made them swear absolute loyalty to him, but he didn't. And again, I forget if that was just out of the kindness of his heart or if he had like a contingency. But either way, that was the reason why he got betrayed by them in the end, right?
It could be both, to be honest. Like I said, right? Like, he's a emotional but also a logical character.
He did use his Geass on Callan though, because that was because though he didn't know he could only use it on one person once.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, after he figured out his power's weakness, that's when he, like, you know, starts reconsidering the use of his power, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, it leads to a lot of, like, what-if scenarios. Like, doesn't Code Geass have a ton of spin-offs, too, now that I think about it? I don't watch all of them, obviously, or read all of them, but still.
It does. It has the Akita side story, but when I watched it, it wasn't as interesting. Mostly because the main character wasn't as good as Lelouch.
It's very hard, like, because Code Geass is built around having that main character and about the topics it covers, so you can't just, like, you know, insert a generic shonen character and slap the Code Geass brand over that and call it a day and make it work. It is unfortunate.
Well, they did say that there is going to be a new Code Geass anime somewhere near the future. So, are you looking forward to that?
I guess we'll see, because it depends on whether or not Lelouch is the main character again, or if they come up with someone different. Like, it kind of reminds me, like, how when you and I played Gears of War, like, we got used to, you know, Marcus and the crew being there, but then, like,
Dom.
and Dom. But then we started playing Gears of War 4, it's like, and they introduced a bunch of new characters while still keeping the old ones, like, and that was okay too. So, it depends on how they pull out the execution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that brings us to an end of our time slot for Code Geass. So, let us now move on to our next topic. Want to know the name? Devil May Cry.
Oh yeah, it was Devil May Cry.
I was trying to do a joke, man. That's actually one of the most important lines from Devil May Cry 3 at the very end. So, for the people who are just tuning in and may not know what Devil May Cry is, how do I explain the story? It's so complicated too. So in the world of Devil May Cry, there was a point in time where demons and the humans were existing in the same world, but like the demons were oppressive towards humanity, right? And eventually, one of the demon knights who served the demon king rebelled against his king and his companions, and separated the human world from the demon world. And eventually, he married a human woman and had 2 children. And the twin brothers ended up growing up in a world where demons were still present because they were trying to come back into the human world. And both of them followed completely different paths of life. And without going into too much spoilers, I cannot discuss much more. So let's start going to that spoiler territory right now. So what ended up happening is that eventually this demon who rebelled against this king was tracked down and killed, as was his wife. And this resulted in the twin boys being orphaned. And because of this experience, they were separated during the attack where his parents were killed. One of them ended up becoming scarred by trauma and pursued power because it was the only way to fill his heart. And the other swore to defeat demons and tried to open his own shop as a demon hunter. So that is the tale of the main characters of Devil May Cry, basically. You think I basically got everything there, Volt?
Yeah, I think so.
Granted, I have only played Devil May Cry 3, 4, and 5, so I do not know the stories of 1 and 2 very well. But I don't think you need to know the stories of 1 and 2 to get a good feel for the characters. Because I think you've only played Devil May Cry 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in my opinion, I think playing Devil May Cry 3 is the only game you need to play if you want to know the full story.
Yeah, so I think ideally you'd want 3 and 5. You technically don't need 4, because 4 is not too important of a story, in my opinion.
Except, like, a new introduction of the character.
Yeah, basically, you play 4 to know who Nero is, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, as the newcomer to the series, I'll let you start off with your thoughts about the series. Let's start with the gameplay perspective, because I know that you tend to be more into, like, the Dark Souls kind of stuff, and this is more like, you know, the Metal Gear Rising hack and slash kind of deal.
Oh, yeah. The game is very fun. Like, you have a lot of movement. You have a lot of options. And the fact that you have a lot of options makes the game very fun, because, like, when you encounter, like, a certain situation, most games, I feel like, you can only go, like, one way or another. But, like, for this one, you could go, like, through many sort of routes. Either you could go stylish, or traditional, or play from far range.
Yeah, you could play super safe by using only guns.
Exactly, and I can't think of much games that has as much movement as Devil May Cry, because you have platformer games, but when it comes to platformers, you only have like 1 or 3 buttons that you can do to attack your opponents.
Right.
Like for Mario, for example, he has the fireball, or he has the jump, or Crash Bandicoot, he has the spin, right? Devil May Cry, they have the platformer aspect, but they also have this action RPG aspect as well.
Yeah, like the combat's very dynamic.
Yeah, except it's not also RPG because you don't level up, or maybe you do, you kind of, but not really.
Kind of by getting new abilities, but you don't like it's not persistent.
Right. So I say Devil May Cry is a one of a kind game that you don't come across very often. So
another thing that I really liked about the game's design philosophy is that you're not punished for playing a certain way, but you're rewarded for playing the way the developers want you to play. Like, if I were to give you an example, like you could hypothetically get through the entirety of Devil May Cry by just standing at a distance and blasting your enemies with guns, right? But suppose you're playing Dante, who's one of the brothers, one of the main characters. So Dante plays really uniquely. He has 4 different stances, all of which give him unique abilities, right? The hardest stance to use is Royal Guard, because basically what Royal Guard is that you have to press a button at a specific time to block an enemy attack. But if you use that, you also absorb energy, and you can eventually release this energy, right? So, and is one of the most powerful moves in the game, like Royal Release. Like, that can one-shot most enemies, right? But you're not punished for using guns only, but you're extra rewarded for being like a masterful user of Royal Guard, right?
Yeah, because it's high reward, high risk, right?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say high risk so much as, like, you have to practice with it. Like, you have to actually get good at it. There's no risk at using Royal Guard because you can just hold down the block button, but it doesn't give you nearly as much reward as doing it properly, right?
Yeah.
But in your case, though, I know that you specifically played Nero out of all the characters, and I think you enjoyed him the most as well. So,
well, it's mostly because I don't want to deal with learning how to use 4 different stances, and I also find V to be very, very simple as well. Like, you just gotta mash like 2 buttons to have like the bird and the Black Panther to just attack, right? Which is why I like Nero's gameplay.
Okay, you wanted something that was like mechanically stimulating, but you didn't want something that was too complex, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
I play V because, so for those who don't know, you can look this up on whatever search engine you want, but V's like the guy with the jacket and the cane, and he summons demons to fight for him instead of fighting himself. It's that, like, his theme is really cool. Like, this whole, like, he summons demons while reading poetry in the background, and he only just jumps in, like, teleports in for, like, the stab with the cane. Like, it just looks really stylish to play as him, even though it's really simple, right? And you think he's simple. He is simple right up until the point where you encounter a Fury. Have you ever tried fighting a Fury with V before?
Nope.
I'm gonna just tell you right now, it is the worst time of your life. All the other characters have really good moves for parrying Furies. So, to explain what a Fury is, if you can imagine like a sort of like reptilian, humoid kind of thing that it zooms around, it blinks in and out of existence, and it only occasionally blinks into existence to attack you. And if you try to attack it most of the time, you can't hit it. So usually the way to deal with that is like you parry it by using like Nero has that he has a slide back to forward slash. Dante has his ice cage, but like V
or the Royal Guard.
Well, even Royal Guard, and actually the thing that's really good about that is that he can use his auto counter, right? Because Royal Guard actually has an auto counter in Devil May Cry 5. But V has nothing. He has no good moves I can think of that are good for countering Furies. Like, not unless you're timing it perfectly. Oh, and I mean, if we're going to go on the topic of talking about Furies, though, we have to talk about Virgil. He has the easiest time dealing with Furies.
Does he know? I haven't played Virgil yet.
Okay, so to the people those who don't know, Virgil is the twin brother of Dante. So Dante and Virgil are the brothers, and they drive most of the story. Usually when you play Virgil, you're not playing him because of the story reasons, but just because he's a playable character. He's like that bonus character that you unlock after beating the story kind of deal. Virgil, you know how he has like 3 different weapons, right? So he has the sword, the gauntlets, and Yamato, which is the katana. If you switch to the gauntlets, your jump becomes a attack. So you just jump on the spot, and that's an attack. That will actually hurt enemies.
Really?
Yeah. So if a Fury tries to charge at you with its claw, and you can see that it's about to do the charge, you just jump, switch to those gauntlets, and jump. That parries the attack.
What? That's crazy.
It is. and like moreover, because of how Virgil plays, like he has 3 ultimate moves, right? I think he's the only character that has multiple ultimate moves. If he parries a Fury and then just times it right, he can just activate his ultimate, like Hell on Earth, or he slams the ground with his gauntlet. Like, that kills Furies instantly at any difficulty.
So why is it that Virgil is so strong as a playable character, but he is so weak as a boss?
Okay, well, to explain Virgil's backstory, so, like, do you know Virgil's whole backstory?
That he was left alone, like, playing in a park when the demons attacked, their house.
Yeah.
And realized that his mom didn't come to save him.
Yeah, more or less. So because of that one event, he just dedicated himself to becoming far more powerful, right? And the first time you actually get to see him as that result is in Devil May Cry 3. Because in Devil May Cry 1, he's just a boss that you don't know who he is immediately, but Dante eventually realizes once he sees the amulet, right? Because only he and his brother have those amulets that his father and mother gave him.
Yeah.
So when he first appears as a playable character in Devil May Cry 3, but it's like, okay, well, if Dante's already this good of a character, you want to give, other people, like, a reason to play Virgil, right? So the tradition with Virgil is that in every single time he's become a playable character, he is always the most OP character. In fact, if I could be so bold as to say, he was the first character to ever have an ultimate move. I don't think any character aside from him has had an ultimate move. In, like, at least, okay, so that was different for Devil May Cry 5, but in Devil May Cry 4, he had Judgment Cut End, which is, like, where he does that, like, he stands down with Yamato channels and, like, slices the whole screen. Like, everything in sight just dies.
Dimensional cut or something.
Yeah, Judgment Cut End. He was the first character to get a move like that. It was only in Devil May Cry 5 where Dante got something similar in the form of Judgment, right? But Judgment has a huge price for it. Because not only do you have to be in Sin Devil Trigger, casting it also ends Sin Devil Trigger immediately. Whereas Virgil, he can use that. He can use Judgment Cut End as many times as he wants, as long as he doesn't run out of Devil Trigger.
As long as his motivation is at max level.
Right, yeah. As long as he's always ultra motivated. And like that, he just got even more strong in Devil May Cry 5, where he has 3 ultimates and he can use them back to back to back. Like, he can open with Judgment Cut End, then switch to Hell on Earth, then go into Deep Stinger. Like, and not to mention, I'm not sure if I told you about my Bloody Palace run with Virgil, but like, he also got a new move called World of V. Like, so here's spoilers for anyone who doesn't know. Virgil and V are the same person. V is just Virgil's humanity, which was separated from him when he stabbed himself with Yamato. But in Bloody Palace, like, Virgil can still use World of V, right? So I was actually fighting against Urizen on stage, I think it was 99, where he brought me down to 2 bars of health. Like, you started with like 20 bars of health, he brought me down to 2, right? And I didn't get to heal before I fought Urizen in full power form, which is stage of 100, right? All I had to do was activate World of V 3 times, and I was back to like almost full health.
Actually, wow.
Yeah, and like, it's like the only cost of World of V is to have full concentration, right? But as Virgil, it's so easy to charge concentration. I just jump into the air and just repeatedly use Judgment Cut. And Judgment Cut, for those who don't know, like, it's like Virgil unsheaths his sword and then sheaths it immediately, and then like a slash appears up across an enemy, like across space and time. Like, it's a ridiculously powerful move, right? All I had to do was keep spamming that over and over and over again, and then cast World of V, and I just heal myself. I'm like, this is broken. He's the only character in the game who's completely self-sufficient in health. Like, he doesn't require Devil Trigger or any of the other game's mechanics to heal himself. He just activates World of V and he's back to full health.
When he's this broken, how come he was defeated 3 times by Dante? Or was it 2?
It's 3 times. Once in Devil May Cry 3, once in Devil May Cry 1, and then again in Devil May Cry 5. And the reason for that has always been, it's because Virgil rejected his humanity. So, usually the thing with Devil May Cry, at least something that's consistent across most of the media, is that a hybrid of human and demon is the most powerful, because demons have very powerful physical bodies and abilities, but they don't have like the human passion to make that strongest.
Oh, so he wasn't motivated.
in a way, he was motivated by the wrong things. Like, the reason why Dante always won fights was because he had the ability to love and care, right? And he combined that passion with his devil's power, which made him ridiculously strong, right? It's like, first of all, he couldn't die from most injuries because his demon body prevented him from doing so, but then he also had, like, his love, his passion, which then, like, combined with his demonic powers made him, like, almost undefeatable, right?
Right.
And that's the same thing with Devil May Cry 5, when, like, Virgil's demon half, Urizen, he eats the fruit of the underworld and actually becomes incredibly powerful, right? The same strength as, like, the demon king that his father fought, like, millennia ago, right? But Dante still won that time because he embraced his demonic heritage and his human heritage, and he didn't reject either, right? And that made him super strong. And then when Virgil finally got reunited with his human side and became like whole again, he was just as strong as Dante because V's experience as a human allowed him to, you know, like retain his touch with humanity once again, right?
Okay. But why is it that when you fight Virgil, he also doesn't have the gauntlets and the mirror sword?
Oh, he's not supposed to have those. Like, that's just a gameplay thing. So they gave that to
But if for some reason he does have them, would you say he will be much stronger than Dante?
No. Still no. Just like from there is that distinction between gameplay and story canon, right? Story canon, they're about equal in strength. Just Dante's a bit stronger, right? So as a matter of fact, when they fought in Devil May Cry 3, there was a point where Virgil was using the gauntlets, and they still fought to a draw, right? At the very, very end of Devil May Cry 3, Virgil had the gauntlet, he had Force Edge, and he had Yamato. Like, that was the full combination, right? All three weapons. But that was the fight where he lost to Dante. Even with all three weapons. Really? Yeah. That was the fight when he lost to Dante, even after he had all three weapons at the very, very end of Devil May Cry 3, right? So then when he fights... and then he gives Force Edge to Dante after losing that fight, because the only thing he kept was his amulet. And then I don't know what happened to the gauntlets after that. We've just never seen them again, right?
Okay.
But strictly from a gameplay perspective, Virgil has always had Force Edge in some form and Beowulf in some form, right? And they wanted to carry that over from Devil May Cry 4.
4 or 5?
4. So in Devil May Cry 4, they re-released the game as Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, and they added Virgil as a playable character. And that's when he got Judgment Cut End for the first time, and when he also got like a bunch of different moves with Beowulf, and yeah, like it was strong. And then they came over to Devil May Cry 5, where they gave him even more OP abilities like Void Slash and like Hell on Earth, which I have never seen such a powerful ability in my life. Like, it is an ultimate ability that has a very like small requirement to be cast, and it can one-shot bosses on lower difficulties. Like, oh man. Like, purely from a gameplay perspective, I was thinking if they had actually implemented the player versus player mod on PC, where like you can make Virgil fight Dante, like I think Virgil has the upper hand in that completely. Like, he has access to so many moves that Dante just can't deal with.
But if you're a master with Royal Guard, then none of that matters, right?
True. I mean, like, Royal Guard is like the end-all, be-all for Devil May Cry. Like, if you have someone who's like impossible to break through on Royal Guard, like, you just lose. As a matter of fact, I showed you that one video of there was a guy who was playing Virgil in Devil May Cry 4, and he was fighting against the Dante boss. Like, you saw how he attacked with the Royal Guard and almost instantly died from that?
Yeah, that Royal Guard parry did a hella ton of Virgil's HP.
Yeah, it's like that's like from a gameplay perspective, like Virgil's much stronger than Dante, but from a lore perspective, they're about on the same side. And then there is that part, like, you remember how like when Nero showed up at the very end after he found out that Virgil was his father, like how he grew his arm back and everything.
Yeah,
it was that same reason too. It's like Nero never wanted to embrace his demonic heritage, right? But then Like, near the end of Devil May Cry 4, he did. Like, he understood why it was important for Sparta to have the ability to love and also have his demonic powers, right? But he never found something that he wanted to protect that badly, I think. Like, he cared a lot about his girlfriend/wife-to-be, but, like, it wasn't quite the same as what it was for Virgil, right? So then...
He wants to protect the family. He wants to stop the brothers from killing each other.
Yeah, and that's when he unlocked his devil transformation, because prior to that point, Nero had never been able to use Devil Trigger. He had his arm, which gave him a lot of demonic strength, but he never had Devil Trigger, like, not a full transformation. But that was when he unlocked his transformation, right? So...
Yeah.
Like,
so it was more so a subconscious thing. Like, you know, once he finally accepts it, that's when all that power flows in. Yeah,
it was like an acceptance of your heritage as well as a strong desire to protect that made both, like, Dante and Nero super strong, right? And, you know, one thing I did really like about Virgil's edition in the DMC5 was that we got an awesome new song. You've heard Bury the Light before, right?
Yeah, it's such an amazing song. But before the song, I would like to go back to that topic we were talking about. About, like, accepting their heritage and stuff. So at the end of Devil May Cry 5, would you say that Virgil has also accepted his heritage as well?
Yeah,
or do you think
I
it's still
think I think so. Like, if you watch the cutscene, I know you haven't played Virgil's DLC, but at the very end when he's talking with Dante and like they're sparring and just being brothers again, right? Like that's when you see that he's finally started to embrace his humanity, right? Because the only thing he cared about before was acquiring more power, being more strong, like being invincible. Like that's all he cared about. But then like at the end of Devil May Cry 5, you see that like that's changed.
Well, the reason why he wanted more power was because he wants to protect, right? But I think he forgotten about that, like his initial goal.
Yeah.
And he only cared about like power, but forgot why he wanted so much power in the first place.
Exactly. It's kind of like how like Zoken, like you remember Zoken from Fate, like how he wanted to become immortal, right? But he forgot the reason why he wanted to become immortal in the first place.
Was there a reason why? Because I don't remember.
There was a reason why. He was in love with the homunculus that became the Holy Grail, and then he wanted to live old enough so that he could see their wish come true, right? But then...
Was that it?
That was it, because when Ilya appeared before him with the Dress of Heaven, he finally remembers the reason why he wanted to become immortal, right? It was kind of the same thing. Like, Virgil's history is just... His whole character is molded by trauma. Like, everything he does is motivated by trauma. Like, I really relate to that on a personal level, right? Like, when something has hurt you so bad that it becomes, like, almost like an obsession, the driving factor that makes you want to change everything, right? And you just hope eventually that this fury, this passion, will replace the pain that you felt. But, like, it doesn't, right? Like, no matter how hard you try, it doesn't. And he never realized that, I think.
Well, it also doesn't help the fact that all this happened, like, was it the changing point of his life was when he was still pretty young.
Yeah.
So I think at that age, he didn't know what he wanted, right?
Yeah, he was, like, I don't know, like, at best 10 years old or so, I feel, in his youth. I don't know his exact age, but he was super young, right?
Yeah, so because of how young he was, he probably didn't know, like, what he wanted. All he knows is that he wanted power, but he doesn't know why, which is probably why, like, he was so aimlessly just trying to become super strong in all of the Devil May Cry games.
Well, he wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't until like Devil May Cry 5 when Dante kind of like tells him off, I guess. Like, that's when he realized it.
I mean, Dante had tried to tell him off for a long time, even in Devil May Cry 3. Right, like during their last fight, like he even asks him, like, "What are you gonna do with all that power? No matter how hard you try, you're never gonna be like Father." Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think a lot of it stemmed from the fact that he couldn't protect his mother. His mother didn't come to save him, and like he lost everything in that particular case. Right, he felt powerless. I remember reading through the Visions of V manga, which is it details like what happens when V gets separated from Virgil. It said that he hated the feeling of being powerless. Right? It made him. It scared him, as well. Like, it was a horrifying feeling, and he just never wanted to feel it again. Right? So, I mean, I understand that, and like it's also the reason why I really like the song that they composed for Virgil. Like, it just feels super fitting. Like,
Bury the Light.
I've listened to that song more times than I can count. Like, when I feel upset, it is the song that I go to immediately to listen to.
That is the song?
Yeah, speaking honestly, Bury the Light is a perfect balance between, like, sorrow and fury. Right? Like, it has those angry instruments, like, I'm gonna call them angry, but, like, they have, like, the synthetic bass, the guitar, yeah, like, it's really metal, right? And then it has, like, the lyrics, like, "I am the storm that is approaching," right? Like, you have Victor Borba's, like, awesome vocalization, which makes him sound like an angry, screaming, like, demonic voice, right? But then when you actually listen to some of the lyrics, like, when he says, like, keep walking the line in between the lights, or inherit the nightmares, or even some parts at the end where it's like bury the light deep within, cast aside, there's no coming home. We're drifting in the ocean all alone, right? Like, that's the sorrow, right? Like, you can hear the sorrow in the lyrics when you hear those parts, and then, you have the power from, like, the chorus and, like, the bridge and everything else. It feels like that perfect mix of someone who's, like, incredibly powerful, but, like, deep within, like, there's a lot of trauma, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not a music expert, and I know that there was that one YouTube channel that actually broke down the composition of the song, and he even did an interview with the composer, which I still have to watch at some point. But yeah, like I had like Devil May Cry 5 has had some of the best music in the Devil May Cry series, I have to admit. Like it, and the music really makes the battles, you know, like the combat system is amazing, and then the music just kicks it into high gear overdrive.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like all the OSTs fits the characters very well, or fits the situations, I guess.
It does. Like I talked a lot about Virgil's song, but then you go back to Nero's song, and like the lyrics are all like how he's been like suppressing his like demonic heritage, but now like he's embracing it. Right. Whereas Virgil's is like he's rejecting his human heritage, and like he's aware that it's there. And then Dante is like, you know, Dante is kind of like the weirdest one. Like you've heard his song, right? Subhuman.
No.
You haven't? Oh yeah, you don't play Dante very often. I forgot. Yeah.
But doesn't he has a theme song in Devil May Cry 3? Doesn't that one fit him pretty well?
He does. It's called Taste the Blood, but I think I don't know, Subhuman. I feel like Subhuman didn't really fit him well because Subhuman just sounds like some dude who's like really upset and he's like, oh, I'm tired of your BS. Come fight me. Right? That's kind of the feeling I got from it. Like it's a good song, I like it, but like it didn't feel like Dante. Taste the Blood definitely felt like it fit Dante more. Like he was like kind of like cocky and provoking people. And then, I mean, of course, of all the good songs, like in Devil May Cry 3, there's also Devil's Never Cry. I'm not sure if you've heard that one before.
I think I've heard that one, yes.
Yeah, that particular song is basically like, it's synonymous with Devil May Cry. It's like basically like the main theme of Devil May Cry. It's like the one song that all the music in Devil May Cry 5 has never topped, in my opinion. But like, yeah, like that's the kind of thing that I liked about musical cues, is that they suit the situations that they're in, and they tell a story about the characters that they're made for. Although, that could also be a bad thing, because V's songs was basically spoilers for who he was.
Oh, really? I never listened to his OST.
Okay, yeah. Some of his lyrics were like, Devil in my blood, living on the edge, split myself in two, death is all around. Like,
split in two, okay.
Yeah, I'm just like, yo! Spoilers. And then, like, another one of the lyrics was like, Crimson Cloud, evening the score. Wait, but who has a score to settle, right? But like that's still Virgil, right? I mean, admittedly though, I loved how edgy V's battle theme sounded. It just suited him. Like it's the reason why I enjoyed playing him so much so, because like despite how simple his mechanics were, like playing as V just felt like a unique experience, right? It just felt satisfying because of the way the character was presented as well as the song. So it makes a big deal in it. And like my only hope is that in the future that, you know, Devil May Cry officially receives co-op support, because that would make me very happy.
If only one day.
I mean, right now we're just relying on like the hard work of the modders who made co-op possible. Like you wouldn't have even played Devil May Cry were it not for the co-op, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, so it's like I really feel like it would bring more people into the game if there were co-op functions. Like how they hadn't, like I remember when they remade Devil May Cry 3 for the Nintendo Switch, they added co-op to Bloody Palace, and I just feel like that should just be like a standard feature for all Devil May Cry games in the future, like to have the option to co-op.
But why only Bloody Palace? Why not, you know, the story as well?
I mean, like that would create narrative issues, but like, okay, like to be fair, the Devil May Cry narrative in 5 also like it had those points that just didn't make sense. Like the characters, they meet up and immediately go their separate ways. Like, right. Why? We're finally back together after fighting through all those demons. Why are we splitting up again? Like, sometimes it made no sense. Like, maybe from a narrative perspective, it might not make too much sense. But, like, at certain parts, though, like, you are full co-op. Like, in that one particular part where V and Nero are fighting against those knights together. Like, that's, like, that makes story sense. Or, like, in 3 Warriors and Devil May Cry Mission 13. So, Devil May Cry 5 Mission 13. Like, there's always ways that you could like story with characters together and still have it make sense from both a gameplay and narrative perspective. It would just require a lot more creativity. But I think at a bare minimum, like co-op Bloody Palace shouldn't be too hard to do. Like at least that's how I feel. Like if you don't want to do a co-op for the campaign, I understand, but like at least co-op for the Bloody Palace would be nice, you know? Okay, but that also brings us to the end of our time slot for today, so any more comments from you, man?
No. I have nothing to say.
Okay, well, in that case, to our viewers who have tuned in today, thank you so much for your time. I don't know when we'll get to the next episode because, as usual, we're having scheduling issues in real life, but when we do, I hope you look forward to it. So until then, though, this is Akira.
And this is Volt.
And I'll see you all next time.